After months of teasing, Panasonic has unveiled the complete specification of its first full-frame mirrorless cameras, the S1 and S1R, and we had the chance to test them at the launch event in Spain. Before beginning, I just want to state a few important things. First, we tested pre-production samples and the image quality is not yet final. Second, we are not allowed to show you full resolution samples including 100% crops. And last, because the firmware isn't final, the performance we experienced that day may differ from the final version that will hit the shelves in April. Also note that this video was mostly recorded with the S1 and S1R, except for a few shots taken with the Olympus EM1X. The S1 and S1R are large cameras, and it is obvious that Panasonic wasn't interested in building a compact system, perhaps because they already have one with Micro Four Thirds. The cameras and the first three lenses are big, heavy, and as you can see, the bodies are definitely larger than the Sony A7 series. The S1 and S1R share the same dimensions and are weather sealed against moisture, dust and cold temperatures down to -10°C. Despite the weight, we found them quite comfortable to use. This is thanks to the large grip and the design which is reminiscent of the excellent Lumix G9. Buttons and dials are precise and the camera is very reactive, including the AF joystick that moves in 8 directions. Some of the buttons on the rear can be retro-illuminated when you press the backlight button for the top LCD monitor. The main menu system has been slightly reorganized and the Q menu, My menu, function buttons and levers offer lots of customization. The quick menu can now memorize your recently used settings, which is very useful. The viewfinder includes an impressive 5.67 million dot OLED display with a maximum refresh rate of 120 Hz and a minimum lag of 5 milliseconds. The magnification can be adjusted between 0.78, 0.74 and 0.7. It's a superb EVF with very crisp details, and the possibility to change magnification is great for someone like me who wears glasses. The LCD monitor has a resolution of 2.1 million dots and can be oriented on 3 axes similar to the Fuji X-T2 and X-T3. The screen is touch sensitive and is very responsive. Like Panasonic's Micro Four Thirds cameras, you can do a lot of things including create custom AF groups and navigate the menu. The S1 and S1R have a dual memory card slot. One takes a UHS-2 compatible SD card, whereas the other works with XQD cards, and will also be compatible with the CF Express standard. There are lots of connections including a full-size HDMI port, USB Type-C, microphone in and headphone out, as well as a 2.5mm remote input. The S1 features a 35mm format sensor with 24.2 megapixel, whereas the S1R has 47.3 megapixel. Neither has a low-pass filter and the two models use a new version of the Venus Engine image processor. It is too early to judge image quality, also because none of my photo editing applications can open the RAW files yet. Panasonic gave us a beta copy of SilkyPix Studio 8 just to give us an idea, and I have to say that things look promising when it comes to sharpness and dynamic range. The high ISO performance seems very good as well. The S1 can go from ISO 100 to ISO 51200 or up to 204,800 ISO with the extended values. The S1R normal range goes up to ISO 25600 and can be pushed up to 51200. Both cameras comes with embodied stabilization, which I'll talk about in a minute. This sensor shift technology allows the S1 and S1R to take high-resolution shots. Like other cameras, they take 8 consecutive images while moving the sensor by 1 pixel. The 8 images are then composited to create a final output which is 96 megapixel for the S1 and 187 megapixel for the S1R. It works for both JPEGs and RAW files, and you can also save a normal shot. Unfortunately, I can't share 100% crops, but it does look like a powerful feature for still life work. The color rendering and level of detail are quite impressive. The cameras are also quick at creating the final composite. Of course, there are limitations such as only being able to use it on a tripod. Plus, there can't be any movements in your scene or you'll end up with artifacts. There is an option to suppress motion blur of small moving elements such as leaves on a tree, but that portion of the image will have less resolution as a result. The S1 and S1R use the same autofocus system. It is contrast detection with DFD technology, just like the latest Lumix Micro Four Thirds cameras. It works at 480 frames per second with a maximum of 225 areas, can focus as fast as 0.08 seconds, and the minimum sensitivity is -6 stops with a 1.4 aperture. The two cameras feel very fast in single and continuous AF, and there are various settings to control speed and responsiveness depending on the subject you're tracking. One new feature is what Panasonic calls Advanced Artificial Intelligence technology. The cameras can detect not only faces and eyes, but also human bodies and animals such as cats, dogs, and birds. As you can see in this example, the camera first detects the body of the subject approaching and then concentrates on her face. Notice that it also detects people walking in the background. People are detected even when sitting down, when half a body is in the frame, or when facing away from you. This works for stills and video, and as you can see here, the camera had little issue following the person talking even when she moved or turned her back to the camera. One thing I noticed, at least in video mode, is that when different people are in the same frame, the camera can easily jump from one to the other, especially if your main subject is moving. Of course, keep in mind that this could also be related to the firmware not being final. You can tell the camera which subject to prioritize by pressing the AF joystick, and this is also valid if you want to go from the left to the right eye. The camera is fast in video mode, as you can see in this simple face detection test, and as for stills, you can control speed and reactivity. In low light, face detection struggle more with moving subjects, especially if they had less contrast than the background. To be fair, I was working with f4 zoom most of the time, which doesn't help, and again the final firmware might bring improvements here as well. Despite the different sensor resolution, both cameras can shoot up to 9 frames per second or 6 frames per second with continuous autofocus and live view. The S1 and S1R have 5-axis stabilization with a rating of 5.5 stops or 6 stops if you use a lens with optical stabilization, giving you dual IS. We managed sharp shots down to around half a second, which is a promising start. Panasonic also added a new feature called Status Scope. It displays a graphic that tells you the amount of shake, and since it remains active in the live view, you can try to be more stable. I honestly forgot to try this, but it looks like an interesting idea. For video, Dual IS seems to do a decent job when walking or circling around the subject. You can also add electronic stabilization, which crops the field of view a little. If I apply a bit of software stabilization in post, the result looks even better. The S1 and S1R can record 4K video up to 60 frames per second. The S1 has less resolution and can do full pixel readout up to 30 frames per second using the entire width of the sensor. The 50 or 60p mode works with an APS-C crop. One advantage of this is better high ISO performance, and the S1 looks really good, as you can see from this sample footage taken at 6400 and 10,000 ISO. The S1R allows you to choose between a 1.1 crop, an APS-C crop, and a pixel-to-pixel mode that is close to a 2x crop. The APS-C and pixel-to-pixel crops work with full pixel readout. We use the S1R with the 1.1 crop, and I have to say that it doesn't look bad at all, but there is more noise at high ISOs as you might expect. We use the Cine like D and natural profiles most of the time, and I really like the color rendering. It appears balanced and natural even for skin tones. The footage is easy to color grade as well. Speaking of color grading, a future firmware will bring Vlog to the S1, as well as a 10-bit 422 for internal and external recording. It will be a paid upgrade and won't come to the S1R. The S1 is clearly the more video-oriented camera. It has extra settings such as 709 and HDR profiles and unlimited recording up to 4K and 30p. In Full HD, both cameras can record up to 180 frames per second, which gives you interesting slow motion possibilities, although a crop is applied here as well. The new lenses have a fly-by-wire focus ring, but you can set it to linear, non-linear, or specify a maximum rotating angle. The S1 and S1R are packed with lots of extra features. I'm not going to list them all, but you can get 4K and 6K photo, USB tethering, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and many other things. Panasonic has designed a new battery for these cameras. You can charge them via USB or power them via USB when the cameras are in operation. The official rating is around 400 shots, which isn't impressive, but Panasonic states that the battery life can be more than doubled when the power save LVF mode is enabled. We shot stills and videos with the two cameras for approximately 5 hours, and the battery didn't run out entirely. It certainly doesn't feel class-leading, but it doesn't look too bad either. Last but not least, we have the price, and as you can expect, there is a big gap between the two models. It is difficult to judge two cameras after spending such a limited time with them, and of course the fact that they had a pre-production firmware means that I can't confirm anything regarding image quality, autofocus, or the overall performance. What I can say is that my first impressions are positive. The S1 and S1R seem very capable when it comes to image and video quality. I particularly appreciate the color rendering of the two sensors. Image stabilization looks promising, and the two cameras are packed with lots of extra features, which is what you'd expect from a Lumix model. The autofocus looks good as well, although I really want to test this more to see if the DFD technology still has limitation in comparison to face detection, especially when tracking fast subjects such as birds in flight. The large size and weight won't please everybody, especially those who have always been interested in mirrorless cameras because of the more compact design. Granted, a full-frame sensor often calls for large lenses, and in that case, it is better to have a larger body. But if you take a Sony A7, which isn't perfect in terms of ergonomics but good enough, or even better a Nikon Z7, you do have the option of keeping your setup fairly compact if you use more primes. Looking at the first three lenses and what's coming next, this doesn't seem to be an option for the S system. Speaking of lenses, let's conclude with a word about the system itself. The mount, which is the L mount licensed by Leica, is at the core of the Panasonic, Leica and Sigma alliance. Alongside the S1 and S1R, Panasonic has introduced three lenses, a 24-105mm f4, a 70-200mm f4 and a 50mm f1.4. All except for the first have been designed in partnership with Leica and have the red Pro badge. The SL lenses from the German brand are already on the market and are fully compatible. Panasonic promises 10 lenses by the end of 2020, and Sigma is set to release 14 lenses this year, plus a mount converter. This means that in a short amount of time, the L system will have an impressive selection of 42 lenses. Now, the Leica SL lenses might offer outstanding optical performance, but they are very expensive for many of us. 3 Panasonic lenses I tested look good, but the 50mm 1.4 comes at a prohibitive price of $2,300. Sure, the optical quality looks great, but not even the 50mm 1.4 from Sony Zeiss is that expensive. I hope that the next primes on the roadmap will be more reasonable. For now, I see Sigma as the key player here. They will start by converting their existing products, which means that their unrivaled quality-price ratio will make the system more affordable and attractive. And that, in my opinion, is very important to the L mount success.